friends and foes. Look, it's October. No, it's not. It's November. It's literally November, and I've been filming this video since maybe June, and I just finished editing it. It's been finished. I just didn't film the intro, and I didn't feel like filming the intro, and so here I am now, and the lighting is terrible because the sun set today at like 4 p.m. You will notice that it's summer in this video because it was summer when I was filming this. This is a video idea that came to me quite early in the concept of starting this channel, where I wanted to revisit a bunch of books that are commonly taught to children growing up in America. I went to a Catholic school my entire life, so this might be different than what public school curriculums were teaching, but this was what I experienced. This is what my siblings and my friends all read, and I have on pretty good authority that these are some classics that even my parents and people in generations older than me have read as well. I, like most people, didn't really enjoy most of the books I was reading when I was in school because of the fact that I was being forced to read them. And this is a common occurrence, I think. It's kind of a rite of passage to hate books because you're being forced to read them. And I was a kid who grew up reading voraciously. Like, that was my punishment if I ever needed to be disciplined. That was the threat, was that my parents were going to take away my books. English was my favorite class, and I loved that we read books in class. I thought that was super exciting because it felt like I was doing a hobby in class. Like it felt like recess almost, and I loved discussing it. Here I am now working on my second degree in writing and the world of literature. And so it's not that I didn't like books. It was that I just didn't like the ones that they chose. At the time, I wasn't into historical fiction. I wasn't into, I don't know, the writing styles of the books were because they were so old. There was one time I was on the school news quoted as saying that like nonfiction books were boring because like no one cared about things that really happened or something of that nature, which is hilarious now because one of my favorite genres to read and write is memoir and life writing. And so I'm literally going to be teaching a class about memoir and the importance of it. So it's all just funny. It's all just funny, okay? In this video, I'm going to be revisiting some books that I either hated in middle school and want to see if I just didn't give them the proper chance, or if I read them too young or at the wrong time, and to see if I have a greater appreciation for them now as an adult. I also want to kind of just evaluate like if I thought that they were taught at the appropriate age. Disclaimer, I am firmly against banning books. I think it's one of the stupidest things on the earth and worst decisions generally. I am for age-appropriate reading. These are different things. I just want to reread books that I read and hated to see if I like them better now that I have a better understanding of them. Books that I never read, but kind of missed out on by not reading them in school because that's kind of the time most people do read these books. And rereading some books that I did read in school and loved and kind of want to see if they withstand the test of time and see if I still love them as an adult. So those are my three main categories of book. I think we have one of each of them in this video, and then I have another three for a second in this little series. So if there's any books that you're thinking of, please let me know which ones you'd be curious to reread or would like me to read. I don't know if you have any recommendations. Now we're gonna go into the actual video, join my time machine and go back to summer. This is a book I didn't read in school. I think my older siblings read it, but my class didn't because there weren't enough books because my class was too big or something. But like we just missed it entirely, but other people at my school had to read it, but I didn't. Got it from the library a few months ago and I was just like, yeah. I just been renewing it, but then I got sick and I was like, you know what? Maybe it's time for Lord of the Flies. So I read it pretty much almost in a day. It's quite short and the pages are like it just like holds really well. Like, you know when a book is just like it just feels really good in your hands and like the spine breaks nice and like even and it's like just like So I have a few pages left, but I just like feel something coming and I'm afraid. And so I want to document it. Okay, well, this is probably gonna be a time lapse until something happens, so. Wait. I need to read that page again. Okay, so finished. Don't really know about all that. I know this traumatized a lot of children, and I see why. I get it. I was curious to see if I bypassed the age of traumatization with this one, and I think I did. I think I'm not traumatized by this because I can see it for the commentary that it is. I will say, based solely on the writing, like there are certain pages where I'm just like, what? Huh? And it's not that it's written confusingly. I sounded like I just said yes, it was written confusingly, but I don't know how to explain it, where it's just the description sometimes. I'm like, can you just say what you mean, please? And something, this is a really, really picky thing, but it was so unclear sometimes who was speaking, because they'd start a new paragraph even if it was the same person speaking, like in a way that I don't think we would do today with most style guides for fiction. It was really confusing who was talking. There were a lot of characters, but obviously most of them kind of were irrelevant or just kind of placeholder people. It's just so fascinating. At the end, honestly, here's my thing. So, spoilers, but this is my theory that didn't come true. So, I guess if you haven't read this, skip this part. But I thought, the reason I started filming is because I thought it was about to be like a Truman Show type thing, where people show up and they're like, ah, gotcha, but also what the hell? I thought it was about to be people showed up and were like, hey, so this was an experiment and you failed, but we had to stop you before you went farther than you already did. Like, I thought it was going to be, in the end, the Stanford prison experiment and the Truman Show had a baby, and that's this book. And it is still kind of Stanford prison experiment vibes. This is one of those things where I was listening to the audiobook for like the first chapter, and like the author, William Golding, had a kind of intro where he was like, yeah, I made it a bunch of boys because if it were girls, this never would have happened and it wouldn't have been as interesting. And if it were a mix of boys and girls, then there would be the kind of inignorable sexual romantic tension that would have to be addressed. And he's like, I don't want it to be about that, so obviously I just made it boys because that was kind of the quickest way to get to this point. And I don't necessarily disagree with those choices, especially from a writing storytelling perspective. I think that it would have been odd if they had a mix of schoolboys and schoolgirls, and like, it was brought down to like the very crux of humanity with the most simple possible like lifestyle of hunting and gathering and living off the land. Simple lifestyle. Something would have been remiss if there was no romantic tension or relationship between like the boys and girls, even though so that would have been gross because they're kids anyway. So like, glad that it was boys, but it's so interesting. I don't know, like I actually kind of loved it in the way that like you like The Handmaid's Tale, you know what I mean? It's hard to look away, and it's just, it broke my heart a little bit. I'm gonna do a reading from the last page, so just kind of again skip. He gave himself up to them now, for the first time on the island, great shuddering spasms of grief that seemed to wrench his whole body. His voice rose under the black smoke before the burning wreckage of the island, and infected by that emotion, the other little boys began to shake and sob too, and in the middle of them, with filthy body, matted hair, and unwiped nose, Ralph wept for the end of innocence, the darkness of man's heart, and the fall through of the air of the true wise friend called Piggy. The officer, surrounded by these noises, was moved and a little embarrassed. He turned away to give them time to pull themselves together, and waited, allowing his eyes to rest on the trim cruiser in the distance. Oh, these little babies! They're children! And then they kill each other, and then they get rescued, and it's like, and now what? They line up and good game. So this hurt my heart a little bit. But it was very... Oh! She's on the kitchen floor. This is brilliant. I'm glad I finally read it. I totally understand why it's the winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature. The writing was at times so frustrating and at times so beautiful and at times so simple that I could see why it is for... Well, here's the thing. I don't think it's for children. It's not. So let me know why people be reading it in grade school. I have to call my siblings, ask when they read it. It's published in 1954. I would have liked a little bit more context about the plane crash. I know the point of the story was what happens after and when they're on this island and trying to figure things out for themselves and how to survive and how to get the attention of people that can save them and rescue them. But I'm like, okay, well, A, what were they all even doing on this plane? Maybe I just missed that. Yeah, it just starts when they're like rising up out of this island. And it's like, okay, but like, what really happened? Like, why were you all on this plane? I know there was a choir, so I'm assuming there was some kind of choir trip or something. They're all British. I'm gonna assume the Navy, the Air Force, the something knows a plane went down. This is 1950s, but if there's planes, there's air traffic control, no? So somebody's gotta know that a plane went down. There were casualties. So they should have been looking for them the whole time, right? And obviously the kids wouldn't know that. That could have been a really interesting moment at the end when like the naval officer is like, we've been looking for you. Like, and for the kids to be like, like it wasn't hopeless this whole time and this is still what we became. I think that would have been really interesting. I don't know, I might have to stay on this one a little bit longer, but I feel like it did its job, whatever that was. I feel like I'd give it a 4-star because I have some gripes, but it was overall very engaging. The message of kind of what mankind, when I say man, I mean mankind, will go to kind of almost immediately and what's so ingrained, and even just the context of what these kids considered to be savage, considered to be other, and the kind of toss-up between order and chaos, and how so many chose chaos. And the guy who fought most arduously for order was ridiculed and eventually murdered. And that's just interesting. Very interesting to me. Hey guys, it's been a second because I've been traveling for quite a bit with my friend Allie, and then my parents came the day that she left. So I've been kind of out of town and haven't been reading as much for videos necessarily. I've been reading, trust. For this video, the next book I want to read, and I've been gotten some great recommendations from my friends when I mentioned I'm doing this video. They're like, oh, you should read this, you should read this, you should read this. And some of them I'm going to take and some of them I'm probably not. But this one it was kind of part of the plan from the start. And that is The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton, which is actually my friend Alexandra's favorite book of all time. And I have read it before. So I read this in 7th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade. I think 7th grade, that was the year. I'll have to call my sister again to fact check, but I'm pretty sure it was 7th grade. And I was like, I thought it was fine. I was like, okay, like it's fine. It's a book that we all have to read. It's good. After talking to my friend Alexandra about it a while ago, just because we were talking about our favorite books and she had brought it in for a class for as an example of something good. And she was talking about it and I was like, you know, that's one that I really should reread as an adult, as a writer, to really see what's at work, because it is such a, you know, popular example of a book that is taught to children, and I'm not entirely sure that all the children get it. I don't think I did as a kid when I read it, and so I do want to read it again. I genuinely want to read this one again. I really want to see what I missed last time, because I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, S.E. Hinton wrote this at like 16 or something. 17, yeah. The Outsiders was an audacious debut written when S.E. Hinton was only 17, laying bare the hopes and terrors behind teenage bravado in a world of drive-ins, drag races, and switchblades. It confronted America with a new breed of anti-hero from the wrong side of the class divide and became a best-selling classic of youthful rebellion. That's courtesy of the back of the book. For those who are unaware of what The Outsiders is about, here's a tiny little blurb. The greasers and the rich kid socias are at war on the Tulsa streets. Pony Boy, a 14-year-old brawler, chain smoker, and dreamer, is a fiercely loyal greaser. But a single murderous catastrophe is to wrench him from his old life and overturn everything he thinks he knows. One famous thing about this book is that the first line and the last line are the same, which I don't even think I knew until Alexandra told me. I was like, wait, really? And then she quoted it like from memory, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess so. Which is something I feel like I did know at the time, but just forgot because I didn't care. And I'm really curious to go back and see what I ended up rating this on Goodreads as a... I don't even know if I had Goodreads when I read it originally. I know I went back and marked most of the books from school as read, and I'm sure I rated it. I want to guess that I gave it a 3. Actually, let's look. 2! I rated it a 2! Did I make a review? No. I just marked it as read for school and 2 stars. So obviously, partially why I'll be rereading it is because I do not think I properly appreciated it for the work that it is, and I'd like to give it a second chance, honestly, earnestly, now that I like know how to properly read. And it's not for an assignment, it's just for my own interest in good literature. So that's the goal. I'm gonna start reading. So I don't remember this one being like super traumatizing. I remember most people kind of liking it because it is teenagers, and it's similar with Lord of the Flies, where the characters are children, but that doesn't, again, necessarily mean it's a kid's book. I'll get back to you!
When I stepped out into the bright sunlight from the darkness of the movie house, I had only 2 things on my mind: Paul Newman and a ride home. I was wishing I looked like Paul Newman. He looks tough and I don't, but I guess my own looks aren't so bad. I have light brown, almost red hair, and greenish gray eyes. I was wishing they looked more gray because I hate most guys with green eyes, but I guess I have to be content with what I have.
Hey guys, you don't know this, but it's been like a month. That being said, I did read The Outsiders. I don't have it with me because I had to return it to the library. Because like I said, it's been a month plus. About that, a little recap of The Outsiders. I did finish it. I read it on like my little Highlands trip vacation with my friends. I'm gonna take my hair down. That's better. I read it on a Highlands trip vacation with my friends, and then I thought I left it at the Airbnb, and I got really upset because really upset is a bit dramatic maybe, but I was a little frustrated with myself because it was a library book, and I was like, dang it. I got a book from the library to save money, but now I'm going to have to buy it for them and replace it since I lost it. So I was a little bit frustrated at myself, mad at myself for losing track of it somehow. And then I get home and it was in my bag all along. So hashtag stay winning. And all was right with the world. I was like, oh, I knew you wouldn't have done that. I knew you wouldn't have, at myself. And I was right, I didn't. But anyway, about the book. I gave it a 4 stars. Originally I had given it 2 stars, which you've seen previously in my Goodreads, but I did amend that to a 4-star review porque it was really good. And I do think this was definitely one of those books that I didn't get it. I didn't understand why it was so impactful and why it was so important and well written as, what was it, 6th or 7th grader. And I genuinely found myself like crying. Like I actually cried. Like I was tearing up at this book because I think now as an adult, I'm 23 years old, and I'm like, these are babies. These kids are babies. And when I was a kid, obviously, yeah, they're my age. Okay, like, yeah, obviously this is hard for them, these characters. As an adult, I had to see it a whole other way. And I'm sure I'll view it even differently someday when I'm a parent. I feel like it's such a pocket of suburban life that's not often written about. And I think Essie Hinton did a really great job of kind of honing in on like what she knew and what she's witnessed. And oh, it was just so beautiful. The writing is stunning. I love the fact that it's written as like this is Pony Boy's project to get his grades back up. That's just so real. And it just kind of makes the whole book feel much more, obviously it's been in Pony Boy's voice this whole time, but at the end when you finally understand that this is, and I don't really think this is a spoiler, so sorry if you think it is, but the book's been out forever, guys. You've had some time to hear about it. So the book is written from Ponyboy, like it's from Ponyboy's point of view, but it's because it's written by him, essentially. It's supposed to be written by him as a school project. One thing that I do think is really interesting is that obviously this is kind of like a suburban gang culture, but all of the characters are white. And so I think it's really something to think about how, like, a lot of people grew up reading about white gang culture in the 1940s and 50s, but I don't know if we ever would have read that book if it was about black gangs or people of color in gangs in childhood. And I think now there are a lot of more books being written, especially about American, African-American, black people experiences in gangs growing up, what kind of effect that has on them as they grow up, and the things that they see from such a young age. But I just think it's so interesting that we did read about American gangs in middle school, and I wonder if it's still being read. And I hope it is, because it's at least an intro to the conversation, but I'd be curious to see if that would ever be paired with something more modern. And that might include a more contemporary perspective on gang culture in America. There has to be books out there, and now I'm curious to find them. I want to kind of search for that. Again, 4 out of 5 stars. Loved this. It's so short. It's heartfelt. Not necessarily heartwarming, but it is at times, like these relationships and how soft they are. These little boys are so soft-hearted, and they just were, I don't know, kind of like, well, first of all, left to fend for themselves in a lot of ways. And it was heartbreaking, but so good. And I'm still thinking about it a month later, not only because I have to update you guys. My next read, some of you may have also been traumatized by this one, Bridge to Terabithia by Catherine Patterson. So we're gonna start this today, see how that goes. Oh, it has like little illustrations too. I haven't read a book with little illustrations in so long. This one I believe I read in 6th grade. I remember the teacher, or no, was it 4th or 6th? But I do remember loving it, and everyone else thought it was so sad, and I was like, that was so good! And then there was the Josh Hutcherson movie. I think my Goodreads bio or whatever says any book that makes me cry gets 5 stars. So I think this might have been the beginning of that for me, because I was like, oh, I'm crying, but also I loved that somehow. So we're gonna start this again and see if I cry. If The Outsiders can make me cry, I'm pretty sure this one can. Guys, okay, I just finished chapter 9, but in chapter 8 has some foreshadowing. Of course, I remember the story from the first time I read it, or the general gist of the story and why it was so impactful and why it was so traumatizing. And there was just some foreshadowing that I didn't expect, and I didn't obviously clock the first time I read it because I didn't know what was gonna happen. But now that I know how it ends, oh, it hurt. It was bad. I don't want to spoil it, but there was conversation about like heaven and hell and what happens when you die. Just leave it at that. I had not clocked that before as possible foreshadowing of something, but it is. I think. I do think so. I just finished Bridge to Terabithia. I did shed like 2 tears. I forgot how sudden the tragedy is. Like, for some reason I remembered it differently. I'm going to go to sleep and update you in the morning with my real thoughts, but that's just my raw reaction. I did shed a few tears. I thought I would still be crying by now, but the tears subsided. Hey guys, so finally here to talk about Bridge to Terabithia. I did finish it. I think it was 2 days ago now. It is just as devastating the second time around, especially I think as an older person now. I think the first time I read it, I was in 6th grade, and now I'm 23. Also, please ignore my, I don't have many places to film, okay? So we're gonna ignore this. I really liked it. It's still 5 stars. It's still 5 stars for me. I love the characters, the writing is beautiful, and it's both accessible to children and devastating at the same time. That, I think, is what makes a perfect book to read in middle school. Oh, it was so devastating. And I know I mentioned I forgot the way the tragedy happened. I just forgot the circumstances because I thought that they were both present when it happened, but it was not. And so one of the characters was out and missed it, essentially, and it has this whole guilt trip about not being there and not inviting the other person to what they were doing. It was just so painful. I think it was more painful this time because I can understand more nuance as an adult than I could as a child, and understand coming at it from a writing perspective now that I'm studying writing in an MFA program. This is a great study in young adult literature. I don't know if it's considered juvenile or young adult. Probably juvenile, based on the age of the main character, but regardless, it's kind of a masterclass in writing for children, and I do think this should still be studied in school, obviously. I also want to be clear that when I'm starting the conversation about whether I think these books are age appropriate to be studied in school, this is not coming from a cancel culture, ban the books kind of mentality. It's more of a fun analysis of, I don't know, did I read this too young to actually understand it? Not that it's bad, and sometimes I think it is absolutely important to read books that challenge you as children, and if they're being taught in school, they're being taught for a reason. And so that's what I'm interrogating. It's not a matter of whether children should have access to these books or whether they should exist, because I think they should all exist. I'm against book banning entirely. I think it's one of the stupidest things we could do as a society. I don't think any of these books should be banned. I think I'm just kind of interrogating whether I got the most out of them when I read them as a kid. That's what I'm doing. Did I get it right the first time with my ratings? Did I really understand what was happening? That's what I'm talking about, to be very clear. I do think this one, I did get it as a kid. I think it was just as devastating, if not more devastating, because I was a child and it was more relatable because I was that age range as the main characters. But now it's more devastating from an adult perspective, where it's like, imagine if these were my children or my nieces or nephews or children I babysat or like people I knew. How devastating it must be as an adult, and understanding more the parents' perspective of how they dealt with things. The family dynamics are much more clear, and I need to reread books like this more often, I think, because I do get a better perspective. And I think when I was a kid, I probably was like, yeah, these sisters are mean and these people are whatever and the parents don't care. Whatever, I don't know. Whatever middle schoolers think when they're being angsty. But now I'm like, no, it all makes sense. So yeah, still give this book a 5. Did shed a few tears. Would recommend for children to read. Obviously, Catherine Patterson deserves all the awards that she gets. I want to read more of her books. I know she wrote Jacob Have I Loved, which I have at home in the States, but have never read. So I think my mom has a copy of it. So someday when I'm home, maybe over Christmas, I'll give that a read if we still have it. I love her writing style. I love the way that she can get into the minds of children. The ending is very heartwarming and heartbreaking, and oh, it all is just, reading it late at night, ooh, that's tough. That reading it late at night when you're already like tired and like a little bit sad, and then you read Bridge to Terabithia. Game over, you guys. So another 5-star read, obviously. Very happy to see that this one still held up and was just as devastating. I think that will be it for this video. I think this is gonna have to be a 2 or 3-parter because I still have 3 or 4 other books that I want to read for this. So this is definitely gonna be part 1 of this series. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that I reminded you of some books that you've read in middle school or cared about or haven't read and maybe want to see what some schools are assigning. This was my Catholic grade school in New Jersey that was assigning these. So stay tuned for part 2, a few more classic reads. I'm thinking, I don't know if even I should say it, but I'm thinking, oh, what's the third? Oh. So, if you can read my lips, then you got a little sneak preview. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you liked this and stuck with me, and I'm hoping to do a bunch more kind of random, wacky reading vlogs like this. So, if you like that, I can't believe I'm about to say this because it's cringy and gross. Like, comment, subscribe. I'm having so much fun. So I hope you have fun with me. And bye!